been a while since I posted a video on building my ship, but I've been quite busy with some small projects that I needed to get done and get finished. This is just a sample of some of the things I've been working on. I'm pretty much done, so I can get back on working on the Flying Dutchman. I'm going to give a shout out thanks to Subaru04, but actually it's Sub04 Aru, but I think that stands for Subaru because we both own Subarus. And he noticed that where this part on this deck, I had cut out the notch where this would have been, but in reality, this is where you would cover that notch up. So I've gone back and I've kind of carved out little pieces, and I will put in a new plank to cover up that hole. I'll get it all stained. Got one more to notch out. That way this deck will be completely smooth. And he pointed out it's not real clear in directions in a lot of the shipbuilding kits. You know, on the lower levels, you need that. You know, you have to have that here. But on this top level, you don't need that cut out, and that way you have a nice even deck. So thanks for that tip, and I'm in the middle of getting that correction made. I want to mention, because I'm having to go through and clear out this top deck off the support that came with the ship. If you remember, I stained this lower part so if there were any cracks, it wouldn't show. It also makes it easier to know how deep to go to get this plank off, because it goes from white back to the stained deck. So that was an advantage of that I had never thought of. I've started securing this deck, and to get it to push down and make contact with the supports, I just put a little piece of wood across and put a clamp on each side, and that worked pretty well. It's been 24 hours, so I can take those off now. On this rear portion, these were a little tight, and so what I've ended up doing is I kind of put them in position and then make kind of like an A-frame, and then I kind of squeeze them together, gently push down, and it locked into place pretty nicely. It's got a little high spot here. I may need to sand this one. Oh, I think it just needs to move a little. Try it again. There we go. That's lining up pretty good. That's tight enough. I could probably not even bother gluing it, but I'll come back and I'll put a little adhesive there. Front one, same way. I just it was a little looser so they can just go into place. I'm putting these supports in place, and I always call this bones of the ship, but really it's a bulkhead, and I'm trying to work on using the proper terminology. And I decided to force these in so that it connects pretty tight. There's just a little bit of flex, and it gets rid of that little bit of gap. These are all parts E1 through E6, and it's this part here. So I have them in place. I have the decking now set in place. It's positioned pretty good. And I'll be able to put these upper deck pieces on as soon as this dries. This needs to be level all through here, and I took a little board and tested it, and this one was a little high. It was rocking back and forth. It still is, you can't see it, but it is got a slight rocking to it. There's a opening here that I don't want the dust to go into, so I put a little painter's tape on there, and just an old-fashioned file, and have been filing this down, and I almost have it level. The rest of them are fine. It's just this one was a little high. I now have this level with the other frame members. Now I'm going to just do a little bit this direction. There's a little high edge on this back one, I think, so I'm just going to do this just a little bit and confirm everything is nice and level. It has a slant, I think, probably towards the center of the ship. While I'm here, I'm going to give a free promotional on this little workbench that I got. It's made by Win, and I use it very often. it raises and lowers, and it also tilts. Now I've not used the tilting function, but it's so nice to have it up where I can stand up and work on something. It's holding the ship nice and firm, and a great addition to my little man cave shop out here in my garage. If you want to see the video that I made on this, I'll put a link in the description of this video, and you can check it out. You can see where I've sanded, because I've stained this. There's a white line where it's starting to take the wood off. This one's getting better, because you can see as this top level is starting to get lighter color because it's filing it. This one must be a little bit lower than the others because the file is not hitting that one at all. So I'll do it a little more. To help me line this piece up, because you want it pretty precise, I'm taking the dowel rod that will eventually be the mast, putting it right where that hole is, and kind of wiggle and lower this into place together. Wiggle that dowel out, and it looks pretty good. This could slide back just a hair. Now this is just my dry fit. I'll come back, I'm gonna pop that back out, put some adhesive underneath it, and continue on. I've got this deck in place. It's in the process of drying, have it clamped pretty good. Then this piece, once I get that, I will maneuver it into place, and you can see I've got a little movement where I can get that lined up just right. The filing down that I did on the back of the ship, I'm now doing on the front to make sure that these are all pretty much the same height. Again, I think there is a little downward slant towards the center of the ship. That's fine, I just wanted to make sure they were lined up pretty well. I've got that done. Again, I had some holes and I didn't want all that sawdust going into the bottom of the ship. I should be ready to position this on here. Yeah, no rocking, feels pretty stable. For these framing members, I put some just standard wood glue on there. And then there's some little notches that these fit in. I'm going to use some CA glue on that. I think I can work it in there after I put this in position. Helps if you put it in the right direction though. Yeah, I'll be able to maneuver those a little bit. So for the center one, I'll use a clamp right through here to help hold that down. Now, in a few seconds that I have, I want to put a clamp on this. Add this clamp here. If you hear the noise, they're out cutting the grass. I have rubber bands positioned here just so I can get it all hooked together here in a moment. But what I'm doing is taking this back piece and getting it centered just right on this deck. There's a notch there that I'm assuming needs to be level with the top of the deck. I'm going to use wood glue here because I want to have some time to maneuver, and then I'll rubber band it all in place. And again, because I pre-stained this wood, I don't need to worry about the glue stopping stain from absorbing because it's already been stained. The rubber bands give me just enough tension to hold it in place and yet let me maneuver it just a little. Now I've got gentle pressure evenly pushing down and also pulling it forward. I did end up adding this clamp to give a little more pressure to get it lined up with the deck. This is an area where I disagree with the instructions. It does have you build these, paint these walls. It does not show the doors installed until a good 2 pages later, and then it shows you build them and putting them in place. I'm building them now and going to put them on even before I put the walls in place. If you recall, some of these parts I'm staining with black cherry instead of black paint, and I am doing the kind of a brush over. They provided a white paint that then you just lightly dust on to give it some aged look. We'll see how that turns out long term. I'm having to pre-attach some items because I want to have my shell lighting in some of the places on top of the upper decks. So that's taking a little time. I'll have to do the wiring also. That could prove to be tricky, but everything is kind of coming together. You can see the back portions of the deck, and I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and post this section of the video, and then I can continue on. I may be a little delayed. I'm going to have some minor eye surgery. I've got cataracts started, so they're going to remove those. So this may delay my production by a few weeks, but hang in there, I'll be back.